Welcome, everyone. I'm Jerry O'Brien, the Executive Director of the Kohl Center for Retailing in the School of Human Ecology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We're partners with the Robin Report in hosting this program, The Next Wave of Retail. And I am pleased to moderate a panel discussion on the best topic ever, innovation and ingenuity. Our expert panel of retailers are going to help us deconstruct what it's going to take for legacy retail to catch up to its future. We have three amazing entrepreneurs to help us identify meaningful solution gaps. Our startup entrepreneurs are Katie Lorenz, founder of Campo Alpaca, who is also a principal at Accenture and a Wisconsin alumni, so I'll try not to be too biased here. Whitney Falk, the CEO of ZZDriggs, who is running an upscale furniture retail business right on target for the popular rental economy. I'm excited to hear from you, Whitney. And Matt Hornbuckle, who is the co-founder of Stantt, a menswear custom shirt business. So let's go ahead and get started. First, please, all three of you, and we'll start with Katie, share what inspired you to start your companies and what makes you different in the industry.
Absolutely. Thanks for the introduction. As Jerry said, my name is Katie Lorenz. I am the founder of a company called Campo Alpaca. We are actually a social good apparel company, and we operate out of Peru with small artisan businesses and family-run businesses who create all of our clothing for us out of, you probably guessed it from the name, alpaca fiber. How it all got started, partially because I've been a retail strategist my entire career since university. I love the retail industry. I love consumer goods. And the whole idea of the company kind of got started on a trip down to Peru where I fell in love with both alpaca fleece, but then also just had this really strong desire to create a company that I deemed to be doing something good for both the people that are making the product, but then also producing very high-end sustainable goods along the way.
Great. Whitney? You're muted, Whitney.
So ZZDriggs, I created ZZDriggs a number of years ago, and we just launched the consumer residential market in the New York metropolitan area. So ZZ offers contemporary and collectible furniture for rent as well as to purchase. And, you know, the history of creating ZZ is really through, I'd say like a binary route, what I call my past life and my passion. My passion being I've always loved design. I've always been a furniture pundit, if you will. And in the past life, I used to work in finance and I worked in equity research sales, and I covered soft lines and hard line equities. So a lot of the big furniture manufacturers that we know of, and learning after you dive into their balance sheets and learning more about their financial models, you know, discovering that a lot of this furniture was not built to last, which just created so much cognitive dissonance for me, because when I think of furniture, I think it's one of the most sustainable products out there. It's why antiques exist. It's why vintage furniture exists. And when built to last, you know, it's probably the most circular product that we know of, besides housing and architecture, besides building and envelopes. So it just requires some tech, you know, if we can all share in it, it just requires a tech backbone to power that system. And that's why we created ZZ. Yeah.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to learning more. And Matt.
My name is Matt Hornbuckle, co-founder of Stantt. We are a men's apparel brand taking a unique approach to the industry. It all started, I was working at Johnson & Johnson in brand marketing, wearing dress shirts every day, marketing some really manly brands like Aveeno and Clean and Clear and Lubriderm. Love the work, really enjoyed my time there. But you know, the frustration of finding clothes that fit, I'm tall and skinny, was really the impetus to starting the company. So my business partner and I left, and at the center of our system is a lot of body scan data. And we took that data, turned it into an algorithm, a sizing system where we have 150 different sizes. We use our algorithm, map you to a size, and we can deliver a custom made for you garment in 10 to 14 days. We started as e-commerce only, but quickly pivoted into a wholesale channel as well. So we're sold at Nordstrom and most of the other high-end men's stores across the country.
Congratulations on that. Matt, I'm going to follow up with you. What do you think it's going to take for legacy retail, as you're involved kind of in your own end in there, for the retail brands to attract next-gen shoppers? What kind of in-store experience do you think is important?
Yeah, I think it really starts with product first, right? Where you need a draw to bring somebody in. It can be the curation, right? When you shop online, you have a lot of choices, which can be overwhelming. one of the nice things about going into stores sometimes is it kind of curates to your sensibilities relatively quickly, and you can make the shopping experience faster. With a product like ours, the fit experience, while we can do it digitally and we have some at-home fit kits, the process of going through the fitting experience and something that is very subjective, right? We've had twins come in and get different sizes. So I think really evolving to things that the customer is looking for and making it worthwhile to come into the store.
You mentioned curation. I think that's a challenge for department stores right now, as the brands have gone out selling their product directly online. The question is, why would I go to you when you sell 10% of what that brand has when I could go direct to the brand? What's your thoughts on that?
I think there's definitely a dynamic of one-stop shopping that can be great, right? If I'm going to bias towards apparel because that's what category we're in. But if you're shopping across 10 different brands for, a bathing suit versus a dress shirt versus socks, that requires 3 different shopping experiences online versus when you go to a store that can all be done in one fell swoop. So I think there's certainly some value there, but again, I think it needs to be created in an environment that's actually enjoyable to be in, right? You don't want to not enjoy that experience, because then you can just go shop the 5 different brands online if you want to.
Okay. Whitney, I'd like to ask all of you, but we'll start with you. Why don't you give me your opinion of what's right and wrong with current view of legacy retail? What is good and what needs to be changed?
All right, lovely question. What is good? What needs to be changed? What is good? I think the best legacy retailers are the ones that have been around for the longest, given the name legacy retailer. And so they obviously can't be treating their employees terribly at this point. Like, the consumer is getting so acute to where they want to spend their dollars, and they're going more towards the smaller DTC startups. They're going more towards emerging brands. We're seeing that direction. And so legacy retailers, they need to continue treating their employees very well, or they need to hop onto the creativity train in a bigger way. And I think that's what's wrong in the legacy world right now, is that it's hard to make changes because it's such a big behemoth organization. It's hard to bring in emerging independent designers, and that's a process that takes time. But I think that is what's missing is that edge of emerging design talent, not just, utilizing the big known name brand designer talent because it might sell, but giving more profits to a larger, wider market. And so I think that is a huge missing link on the legacy retail side. And then I also think the experience of when a legacy retailer's product intersects with their end user is an experience that has not yet been tapped into. Like, one aspect of ZZ is we provide elevated quality product. It's furniture that might otherwise be inaccessible to buy outright. That's why we offer it for rent. But yet another aspect of the ZZ experience is the delivery. I've once anecdotally heard that the most anxiety-inducing experiences one has in life are, of course, death, birth, marriage, and moving. And so we looked at, not only are we trying to offer much more elevated product that we can share in, so we don't have to purchase it outright, but also turning the moving experience completely on its head and making it an experience that you look forward to. And there's some key elements of the ZZ delivery that just stand out and really have led to all of our organic word of mouth marketing. So I think to get to my full on point here is that, experiences are the new luxury, and just as a retailer selling a product is missing half of the fun.
I love that. Experience is a new luxury. Katie, do you want to follow up on that? And I'll get you, Matt, and then we'll discuss this a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as given by the type of company that I started, obviously sustainability is super important to me. And so one of the biggest things that I think large legacy retailers can do better is be more accountable to where their products come from. Of course, who's actually making all of the clothes or furniture, and understand that that's also part of their brand. And I feel like we've made strides over the last decade or so, but still not quite enough. We still hear big horror stories about slave labor and like where products are actually made. And then it's just unacceptable. So obviously that's a really big one that I think legacy retailers are responsible for. And I think if they want to continue, especially to generate interest with the younger generations, that's something that they're going to have to fix pretty quickly. The other thing that I think they could definitely do better on, and like, why would you go to like a larger store versus going to like the smaller brands, which, hey, I'm a small brand, so I love it when you guys come to us, is like finding a way to build connection with your customers. Like, I think Nordstrom's is a fantastic large company. I think they do innovation incredibly well. And I think they're finding ways, to your point, Whitney, to like move quicker and get better design in there. But just being a massively large company, like with red tape, they have to get really creative about that as well. And yeah, I think they do a really great job at it. There's a few others that I think of those brands and I like know what I'm getting. I know what the product is, and I expect a certain experience, and they deliver on that very well. So they will, like, if they continue to do that online and in person, I think that's going to just serve them well.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And the only thing I would add to that, I mean, Katie's so right. Like, the big elephant in the room is the word everyone talks about right now, sustainability. And the consumer, just as we talked about a few moments ago, the consumer is just wising up so much to greenwashing, which is a real clear and present danger to both, you know, our shared environment as well as to consumers' pocketbooks. But yet, it's only sustainability in the conversation is only going to increase. The conversation on circularity is only going to increase. Retailers are going to have to make product that lasts, because I think in 5 years, if you're a retailer and you're not offering like a buyback or a circular program, like, you're probably going to become obsolete. So it's a good thing that we're moving in this direction. I'm quite optimistic that we're moving in the direction of producing goods that last.
I'm very excited to hear you say you're optimistic. There are times I've been having this conversation with people for a long time. So yeah. I feel like we perhaps are a little slower than I had hoped to be. Matt, do you have anything to add to this?
I think it comes back to service, and Katie mentioned connection with the customer. And I think that's everything, right? When you go to these retailers who are more price driven, there's so many options now that online that it's really hard to compete on price. So I think service just needs to be front and center for everybody. And there's certainly a lot of retailers who do that great, but there's also a lot who do not do that great. And I think that that's going to be such an important part in the future.
I appreciate there's a lot in there. When I talk to my students, I often come up with them bemoaning the sameness. So Whitney, to your point, it's the same product everywhere. So they're very excited when someone does bring in the new designers or exciting things. The experience in stores, and we're at a really interesting time, difficult to hire, can't seem to get the stores off the ground, of course, closing for COVID and trying to restart. A lot of opportunities there for someone, I think, to stand out, to take this and go the rest of the way. And Whitney, I really am glad that you brought up how you treat the employees. It's difficult to ask employees to go out and enhance an experience when they don't feel that their experience as an employee is what it should be. So I appreciate all those comments. There's a lot there, the sustainability, circular economy. These are topics that come up constantly in the industry, and particularly among my students. So I'm excited to hear more about that.
Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, one aspect of sustainability that's missed is discussing not only external sustainability as it relates to your product, but internal sustainability. You know, it's just like, I think that was one of the biggest learning curves for me in the first years of getting ZZ off the ground. It's just how important it is to, you know, hire the best team that you can, but also treat them as well as possible. Because, you know, my job is probably, it always goes back and forth between spending 40% of time on product and 60% on people, or the other way around. It's so important. And ultimately, you know, we say this often at ZZ, like we just want to create, like, in art history, there's this term, the harmonious curve. And I think it really applies to business. And in business, you just want to create some symbiotic relationships, whether it's between you and your team, whether it's between your suppliers and your team, whether it's between your product and your team. And having that feedback loop is so important. especially now because quite literally our safety depends on it. So it's internal and external sustainability, I think, are of equal weight, and I'm excited for us to talk more about internal sustainability as a society in general.
You just gave me a new term for class, harmonious curve. My students are going to be happy to see that. Thank you.
Yeah. Like the shape of our retinas, it's all out there. The universe, well, it's pretty beautiful and cosmic.
I love that. I do. It's interesting. Obviously, I think it was last week the UN came out with pretty dire warnings about our environment. So as I said a moment ago, I've been talking about this for a long time. I feel we're behind. I hope that we are about to have an acceleration in awareness and a movement to make the necessary changes in that. Katie, so you're primarily online. Do you ever anticipate having your own store?
Yeah, actually. And I know that's sometimes I answer that question and people actually are surprised by that. But a few reasons. One, we're online, like that's our main channel, but actually we do a lot of like in-person events. Unless you're like in this area, a lot of people don't know about it, but there's actually like markets, like makers markets, like every single weekend in like various large cities. And especially one, given like our type of product, it's made out of alpaca fleece. There's not really a larger understanding of this material yet. Having people be able to like touch and feel the product, they just like immediately get it. And that's something that they can't like reach into their computer screen and do just yet. So those markets are actually super important for us, that physical retail space. I could totally see us having like a physical retail space as well, like a pop-up or some sort of freestanding store. I think that'd be awesome for us.
Okay.
Both from just like creating the experience, but a lot of our product is just like touch and feel. As soon as I can get somebody to like try on something, don't even like, it's already done. It's already sold.
Yeah, I've actually seen that firsthand, and I know many of our students have worked with you in an internship, so I hear about your product quite a bit. So it does seem to work.
We're doing our job.
Does seem to work that way. Matt, you are serving as a wholesaler, but do you anticipate? Is there any opportunities for you in just your own shops?
We still do a lot of DTC business. So the primary channel for us right now is wholesale. We actually started doing pop-ups the second month of our business, and that it fundamentally changed the direction of what we were doing. So originally, we thought e-commerce only, right? We had done a Kickstarter. Everything at the time was e-commerce, and we very quickly saw the power of that in-person connectivity. In the end of the day, you're selling to humans, right? And one 5-minute conversation with somebody goes such a long way, and it can go so much farther in terms of building the loyalty and lifetime value relative to just the digital experience. So we've done, gosh, I don't know, 20 different pop-ups at this point over various, mostly in New York City. And we're now trying to do our own retail. Landlords now want full pre-COVID rent in New York, which is absolutely absurd, but that's a different topic. But we're very, very bullish on retail and doing it in the right way and doing it in a smart way.
Whitney, I'm going to get to you, but I want to ask Matt this. I fully agree. I think particularly the pop-up idea and physically engaging with your customer. How do you work to get that customer then to become an advocate? Because the pop-ups aren't going to hit the mass that you want. They're a wonderful supplement online. I think they're great for storytelling. But how do you turn that customer into an advocate who is helping you spread your story?
I just focus on building a relationship, honestly. So it starts with an amazing product, right? If you don't have an amazing product, you're dead in the water. We spend a lot of time on customer service, and I spend a lot of my time just reaching out and talking to our customers. And, we reach out and set up half-hour phone calls and get, A, you learn a lot as a company, but B, you solidify that relationship with the customer. And I think too many brands these days try to do digital only because it is more scalable and it's easier and it's automated. But man, when you create that one relationship with that one person, it goes such a long way, and it's through so many different facets of the business.
Whitney, do you want to jump in here?
And remind me of the specific question. I want to make sure I'm
well, actually, we've gotten off a little bit, but a little bit. your business is a little different, so I don't know that or a physical store. Would you have a showroom perhaps for people to shop through, or do you anticipate any need for physical presence?
Yeah. So, the beauty of ZZ and what we planned all along is that people can try the furniture. So it doesn't lock you into that commitment. You can try it out. If you like it, you don't like it, return it within a week, and you're just paying really just for delivery of the furniture. Most of our customers, 9 out of 10, end up keeping the furniture and even buying it out at the end of their lease, from what we've seen in the data so far.
Wow.
Then beyond that, it's like we spend 90% of our day, not even our waking day, but our whole day, literally touching furniture. We're always interacting with furniture. It's just as crucial as like having a roof over our heads when we sleep or the food we eat. So why I bring that up is because our goal is to set up little showrooms really across all of the New York metropolitan area. So we're getting furniture installed to so many different places where we can just, let someone know, go, are you in the market for some ethically made clothing? Go and visit an XYZ store, or, come and visit this like shoppable apartment here. And I think I keep saying it, but like experience and like legacy retailers need to tap in and really put their creative thinking cap on how they're going to reach their audience in really novel, creative ways. And I don't think it's like doing some sort of installation in Union Square. It's got to go much deeper than that, which I think is the fun part. And I think that work alone will support a larger, wider class of creative individuals and artists. I'm just optimistic about where we're heading here. So, again, with ZZ, we offer furniture to rent. You can try it out. You can try it out for as little or as long as you want. But that's the nature of building a product that lasts, is that so many people can utilize it.
All of you make me excited to actually engage with your product, which is kind of fun. So I am going to ask, and this is a little off too, but as I listen to you, there are so many dynamics affecting the market now. COVID's been talked about to death, so we'll move on for that. But there is, Whitney, in your case, a society that is just moving around and deciding maybe, there's a huge movement not to really own homes. So switching places, I would think there's advantages to that. Matt, I think, specific sizing again, so I buy less clothes that fit me well and I feel good in. And Katie, the whole concept of, doing right by the developers, all of you you're tapped into aspects of really emerging markets. What else, I guess, tell me what you see in the markets that you think are going to benefit your business or each other's. And Whitney, if you want to start, since I've got you up here.
Yeah, the other markets that'll benefit ours. I mean, everything, we're realizing now everything is so interconnected, right? So I think it's the other markets that'll benefit ours. We're moving into a nomadic society. We're moving into one that no longer clearly has to be in one place at one time. Remote work is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. People love to travel. Travel is the number one way to experience mindfulness. For a lot of people. And so we are adjacent to that, of course. We're also adjacent to the fact that, like, again, moving is so difficult. No one wants to schlep their stuff across the country, even across the city. Storage is expensive. We're adjacent to flipping that on its head, of course. We're adjacent to the real estate brokerage community. We're also adjacent to, the commercial and residential development community, as these individuals want to incorporate more emerging independent design into their builds to give more heart and soul into a place. Offices wanting to make their workspaces more homey. We saw this especially pre-COVID, but it's got even more juice and firepower now. We saw that trend of the office mimicking the home environment and being more like comfy, cozy, loungy, if you will. And that's certainly the case now, especially as employers are attracting their employees back into the office. So, I mean, it's near, far, and wide. We even, like I said, we have furniture for rent as little or as long as you want. So the event, prop, photography community, and the photography community is blown up given the age of Instagram too. Sure. So it's near and wide, and it's furniture. So it spans a lot of different needs: hospitality, lodging, consumer residential, many different areas.
Okay. And Katie, what what do you see as social trends that are affecting your business, and why are you valuable to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you mentioned my other job is I work at Accenture within the retail consumer products area. So we're doing research about this all the time. And even just over the last like 5 years or so, we saw a really meaningful shift when it comes to customers actually purchasing based on their values. What we saw like a while ago was everyone loved the idea of fair trade and like feeling good about where their products came from. But the amount of people that actually purchased based on that was quite small. And we're seeing that shift now. Like people are willing to quote unquote put their money where their mouth is, especially Gen Zers and millennials. They're willing to pay a little bit extra to buy into a brand that they can feel good about. So obviously that one plays very well into Campo Alpaca. That's why we've kind of built the whole company around that story of we can create good quality products that actually do good for the people that make them. But to that point, and I think this was Matt that said this earlier on, like if you don't have a good product to stand on, like you're already dead in the water. That's something I wanted to make sure that we did at the very beginning. I was talking to investors and I'm like, yes, we love fair trade. We love sustainability, but we built the company around this material and like these suppliers, and that we know that our products are going to last like a really, really, really long time. So we started there, and then I kind of see the fair trade and the social impact as like cherry on top, but no customer is just going to purchase something that they don't actually want. Or isn't high quality just because it has the good story behind it. Well, they might, but not enough.
I completely agree with that. And Matt, are there societal changes? Why? I'm sorry, you said 150 different sizes, I believe, or what? So,
yep.
How did you decide that was important? Why my medium, small, and large aren't okay?
Yeah, I think expectations are just higher right now. And I think a lot of that has to do with the new technologies that are available, right? Whether it's something like direct to consumer access with e-commerce, whether it's faster shipping rates, whether it's manufacturing technology. And you see it across so many different industries where the norm, which was the norm because of the older ways of technology, are being broken by newer business models. And I think customers are expecting that across all categories they shop. So I think something, around personalization and individualization is becoming increasingly important and expected. And I think the way you present yourself has always been important, and people are getting even more excited about that facet coming out of COVID, right? We've seen it, people dressing up a lot more. They've been stuck at home. They're kind of sick of the t-shirts and joggers, and they're stocking up on things. Going out to dinner now is kind of special, when before it was just dinner in New York, sweet. Now it's, hey, we're going out to dinner. This is an event. So yeah, it's something we're really excited about. And I think everybody's talked about sustainability, and we're
Sure.
Apparel is one of the worst industries by far. We all know that. So our shift towards manufacturing on demand, we only make what's ordered just for the individual, dramatically reduces the amount of waste. And that's obviously something that's here to stay. And Katie, excited to hear the data that you all are seeing, because there is always that, it's more expensive and it is sustainable, but definitely excited to hear that customers are shopping based on that more and more.
Absolutely. And to Whitney's area too, like I've seen tons of evidence that the circular economy is just getting stronger and stronger. Like people don't want to move. Like Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, people don't like haul their stuff with them anymore. They literally just post up like moving sale. And they take pictures of all their stuff and they just come get it from their house. And then they get to their next place and then they refurnish the whole entire thing a different way, because why not? And it's exciting. I think it's really exciting. And I think, one, you get to feel good that you're like not just purchasing more stuff, but that's not necessarily great for the environment either. And then on the same side, I don't know, I feel like that's a little woo-woo of me, but I feel like there's some connection there too. Because like a piece of furniture, for example, has lived in like how many different homes once it finally like makes its way to you and it's still in great shape. That's kind of exciting.
I
Totally
couldn't agree more.
And there's a line that we talk about here at ZZ. We call it sounds a little bit juvenile, but the 4 F's of sustainability. So first it was fuel, then it was food, and now it's fashion. You see that in Google search trends and obviously all the big brands. And then we think furniture is next. You know, COVID, silver lining of COVID is that it really accelerated that conversation. But I think we're all thinking about circularity and certainly sustainability in new ways. And we consider ourselves students of sustainability. I think we're all still learning, of course. No one has all the answers. But one like big tenet to the conversation around sustainability is like building products that will last, you know, buying less, but buying well. Our business model is entirely predicated on the furniture lasting for as long as it can, as it should, as it can and should. That's, to your point, Katie, it's why antiques exist. It's why vintage furniture exists. So it's fascinating and exciting in many ways. And also I think it's so cool that like everyone's just getting so much more comfortable with sharing in general. Yeah, I think I could talk about this for hours, but I think the conversation around COVID led to us being just more considerate and more open and knowing that like a lot of germs aren't bad. Some are obviously very catastrophic, but many aren't. And so it's not like anyone wants to, you know, receive product that is of course, you know, not clean. Of course, everything must be professionally clean and must be meticulously maintained and cleaned. But I can remember when I was first fundraising for ZZ years ago, you know, different investors or venture capitalists would just say like, oh, like, I want to share on this couch that someone had before. And then you have to remind them like, hey, bed sheets are usually have like, last I've read 4,000 to 6,000 turns, you know, often people sleep in the same sheet. So we think about silverware at a restaurant. It's just, it makes it so much more comfortable and open. And it's all derived from a foundation of like appreciating other people. You know, I think at the heart of it, that's what it is, which is again, just a gorgeous thing in general.
I love it. I heard a few years ago when I thought we were perhaps at the worst moment of this, I had some students say they could never buy a used house. And I remember thinking, wow, that's not good. So,
yeah.
Fortunately, I really think that was when we bottomed out, and I've seen things get a little bit better since that time, because there is a history of shared. One of the bedrooms in my house has my great grandmother's bedroom set. And you know what? It's a story we tell to anyone who stays in that guest room. So it does add, I think it adds value and history and connection. So I appreciate that. You know, at this point, I want to be sure you guys get a chance to crosstalk, ask yourselves questions. You have 3 different businesses, all of which you should be very proud of and are doing good things. Do you have things you'd like to talk to each other about? I have more questions.
Oh, goodness, you know, it's interesting because you both kind of work in a different spectrum of retail. So of course, you know, the alpaca works that you create is all very artisan derived, artisan made, handcrafted. And then on the opposite side, Matt, your business is very automated. And so both seem like trajectories that retail is going to go in the direction of, which is exciting. Any ways that you think like, any ways in which you like meet back up in a considerable really overlaps, if we're looking at a Venn diagram, like where do these two really meet back up? What do you think is most, what are the standout qualities? Of course, product has to be good, but anything else?
I'm silent, not because I can't think of anything. It's like I have too many things. Just kidding, Matt. No, we have nothing in common at all. No. Well, as you mentioned, first off, like we both lead with like product. But when I'm hearing about like Matt's business and stuff like that, something that he said very, very clearly, which I loved, was just like getting to create a very specific experience for your customer because they're so personalized. So, I mean, we don't quite meet up there because like my sizing is just like small, medium, large, but still just creating that specific connection for the customer in which you completely met their needs. And then they are hopefully going to become a brand advocate for you. Also on the flip side of it, on the technology aspect, because I love what you guys do, and personalization is obviously a very big trend right now too. On the technology side of the world, part of what I'm constantly working on with like the small businesses and families that I work with down in Peru is like, okay, how can we use technology to up your guys's business and create larger business for you? And the trick of that is like respecting tradition and like where the products came from, but then also finding ways that we might innovate as well without losing that sense of tradition and like heart and like how they've typically always done things. So especially going down to Peru and most of the places that I work with, we find people that are looking for work and otherwise their work options are very limited. That's part of why I wanted to start Campo in the first place. So something I'm like really careful about doing when I go down there is like not coming in with what I call white savior complex of, oh, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z things and change everything about this because we Americans know what's best for everybody, which I think honestly couldn't be further from the truth. So just being very open and like listening to our suppliers down there of like, hey, here's something that we actually want as far as like technology goes or growing your business, or maybe it's neither of those things. And that's totally okay too. Sorry, I went off on a big tangent there, but.
I love it. Matt?
When I like, Katie, what you brought up, the emphasis on the people, right? And the human side of it. And I think to do what we're doing in our business model, the technology, both the software and the machinery and the supply chain has to be a pretty sophisticated level. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to who's actually making the garments, right? And a lot of that is finding the right factory groups or the factory partners who, marry that technology with the human centricness, right? Treat their employees in a really positive way and, bring in the training and make sure they're up to snuff in terms of the construction of the garments and things like that. So that was a really big part of when we started the company, like visiting the factories and the facilities and making sure the people were treated in the best way possible. And that's something we, did as we found our most recent group of factories.
That's great.
So multiple times I've heard things about new business models and customers' expectations. And this is to anyone. Do you think, so Matt, for example, you personalize your shirt. So obviously I'm not going to get my shirt tomorrow. Okay. It worries me sometimes that there are things in the existing retail market that have made customers' expectations kind of ridiculous, particularly from a sustainability point of view. And I'm just interested in any of your opinions on that.
You just give them a reason to wait. Honestly, it's like I get, okay, if I'm buying laundry detergent, no, I don't want to wait. If it's something that's commoditized, but if there's a true superior factor to the products, I think people are more than willing to wait. And I think the next layer to that is managing expectations, right? And I could tell our customer 3 weeks or 4 weeks and it'd probably still wait. I think there's a certain point where it gets ridiculous, but I think there's within reason you say, hey, look, this is going to take 10 days because it's made just for you, or our artisans are working on they're literally hand making your product right now. It's going to be 2 weeks until it gets delivered. I think people are completely okay with that. But you got to manage those expectations, because when we see delays, people say something, right? Even if it is beyond 10 days or 2 weeks, but yeah, especially with COVID. I mean, shipping and supply chains are just a complete cluster right now.
Wow.
And even like we air freight stuff because we're, it's made on demand. And even with that, so there's a lot of ongoing proactive communication happening. And I think people appreciate it. People are understanding in general, right? I remember when we started the company, it was, everybody's going to be so pissed off if A, B, or C happens. And our Kickstarter was delayed multiple times because a lot of fun issues. But just so you communicate it, people are totally understanding. Yeah, you have the occasional not nice person in the mix, but in general, people they're understanding.
I totally agree with you. And I mean, I think Amazon's fault. You could just get stuff so immediate, like so fast. But to your point, I think people are understanding it as long as it's like, you give them the right reason, like it's the right product, it's the right fit, it's made just for you. Like that's a very reasonable response. Like, do I get like toilet paper and all my Ziploc bags on Amazon? It shows up like later on that day. Yeah, but you can get that stuff just about anywhere. So the commodities piece is huge, especially for like startup brands like ours, like having that story, that brand behind it. At least from what I've experienced, customers can definitely be very lenient, especially once they're bought into your product and then your story.
Communication's key for sure. And I think it again goes back to the people on your team, because where is the communication stemming from? It's stemming from your CX department. You know, we saw that huge blow up with Everlane right at the start of COVID, right? Like a company that just touted themselves on being internally, externally sustainable. And then it turns out that they just weren't treating their CX team well at all. It was a lot of empty promises.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes back to like, it's full circle. It's that symbiotic relationship all across with everything you touch, the harmonious curve, that like your CX team are definitely working professionals in many, many, many ways. They should have equity in your company. They should have profit sharing. If they're going to speak intelligently and well about your brand, they have to be a part of your brand. You know, it's not just like a calling agency. It's not just, you know, some mediocre job. Like it's a full on crucial apex of your business intersecting with your customer. And so I think that's, if we go back to legacy brands, that is just not part of the equation right now on the legacy side. And it's huge missed opportunity. And going back to what Matt said, like you have to interact well with your customer, and that's going to mean like just jumping up the pay scale for a lot of these legacy brands with their CX support, which is a good thing, which should happen.
Great. We've talked a lot about customer experience and connecting with your customers and communicating with your customers. And I'd love to get some insights from you. How your stories are wonderful, but the more complex, I think Matt said earlier, you know, competing on price is very difficult in an online age. But that's a simple, you know, come here, we're cheaper. It's a very simple message to get out to customers. You guys have a much more complex message in each of your businesses. How do you get that message out? How do you get a customer to slow down long enough to hear it? And then similar to what I asked earlier, how do you get them to help you spread that message in a way that connects with people?
Yeah, I know it's a really awesome assignment too, because we all have to separate ourselves from like the greenwashing perils that exist. You know, there's a lot of certifying agencies out there. It's like we offer most of our hardwood or most of our contemporary products, it's FSC certified wood, you know, Ecotech certified fabrics. We're in the process of we're in the auditing process of becoming a certified B Corp. We are a public benefit corp. So if we falter in any of these things, or, you know, if we don't do what we intend to do and say that we're going to do, you know, there's legal ramifications and responsibilities for that. So I think we're like, there's a term that we use internally at ZZ, which is we're entering into the era of accountability, which is so exciting because it's like the only way we're all going to get through it, you know? So what that means is just like, you can't just be talking the talk. You obviously have to be walking the walk, and you can't just walk the walk as a company. Like you need to showcase how you're doing this outside of your marketing department, which is a good thing because there it is again, there's that symbiosis. There's other agencies that you support. There's other certifying bodies. There's other people that are hired at outside organizations that can audit this for you. You know, there's so many more things that are available right now to make sure that we're doing right for our people, our product, and our planet. But I think it takes a village, you know, because no one's going to solve this on their own. You know, it's the largest existential threat we have. So we all have to combine forces and like, you know, have like a Captain Planet kind of scenario here where we just pool our resources and our knowledge. So it's a very beautiful thing in many ways.
Matt, can you make us some Captain Planet shirts? I will wear it every day if you get me one right now.
I'm going to have that theme.
Me too.
I'm going to have that theme song stuck in my head now for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
Captain Planet, he's our hero.
Yes.
Going to take pollution down to zero. I don't even know why I know the words anymore.
Impressive.
I think, Jerry, to your question, I think it comes down to first understanding who your customer is, right? And, you know, when at launch, I think most founders have a thesis and a hypothesis, and then it just comes down to talking to them and really getting to know them. And then just being where they are, right? And there's so many different communication touch points now. You're just bombarded with messaging all day, every day. And one of the things we've talked more and more about is, you know, you default to digital. I think everything these days, like, oh, let's go on Facebook, let's go on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And those platforms can be great. They can also be big old black black hole pits for money. And so we spend a lot of time looking at things like retail and like pop-ups and direct mail and things like that get to the customer and break through. And then just the singularity of the messaging is so important. With, I think every person on this phone, you could probably list off 20 attributes of their brand in the business, but what are those one or two things that are most important that first touch point is so critical, and break through that way. And
okay.
Honestly, we're still figuring it out. Like it's a big experiment, especially to your point, the big black hole money pit that is like paid advertising online, like call it the chicken or the egg issue. Like I've met a bunch of companies that just throw a whole bunch of money into it, and sometimes it takes off and they're making great ROA and everything is great. And then other times it doesn't. And it's hard to know exactly how much you should be putting into that. So to your point as well, Matt, I spend a lot of time doing boots on the ground stuff. I'll be honest, I have not figured out how to like get out to the masses. It's a lot of in-person stuff. It's a lot of reaching out to our customers. Like we are emailing with customers, we're setting up phone calls. I have like goals for myself and then like my team of interns. It's like, okay, like this many new connections every single week is like our goal. And especially as we're just getting started, like each one of those relationships, you never know which one is going to be like incredibly useful or just a interesting conversation. So it's a lot of like that type of work. And I think a lot of folks, once they get started on e-commerce, and I have some friends that have very successful e-commerce and they just like figured out Facebook algorithms, they've got a product, it works. I don't want to say done, it's not easy by any means, but ours is a lot more of a mix, I would say, just because of our type of product. Like we know our customers, we're not battling based on price, we're battling based on quality, based on basically just a superior product made out of superior material. So it's like finding out the ways to explain that to people, which isn't always easy, especially online.
I love that you have your interns making all those calls and reaching that quota. And I say this only because like young graduates, there's definitely an aversion of like the younger graduating classes to be on the phone or be like in person. It's so much more, it's like texted and written and I would just encourage, your students too at Wisconsin, it's going to be a big separator between those that really excel. It's just like making sure that you're out and about and you're not just like hiding behind a computer screen or text or whatnot. Like that will also, I think, be a big divider of companies that succeed, especially with younger employees.
I couldn't agree more. We work very hard, experiential opportunities for the students to get them comfortable. And it's actually a very nice feedback we get about a lot of our students, that they seem to be much more willing to risk that handshake and to go see those people individually. So I appreciate that. Whitney, I'm going to follow up. You said correctly, your the certifications, the certified corporate B Corp. It kind of goes back to what I said before. That's a more complex story than some of the giant retailers, both online and physical retailers in the country, have to tell. And I hear the individual that maybe as an industry, is there something we can do or that you'd love to see happen to help those stories be easier to tell? Quite frankly, I don't think a lot of my generation would even know what a lot of that is. Okay, I study it, so I do. You three and my students are of generations that at least they have some awareness going in. But I don't think, Gen X boomers, if you said, we're certified B Corp, and certainly a lot would, but there would be a large number of consumers who that would not be a reason for buying. How do we change that?
That's a great question. And I'm going to get out of the sun, you guys. I'm in our warehouse space with ZZ, and I haven't taken we just moved into this new warehouse actually just a couple months ago, and I haven't taken a call in this space. So I'm going to move over to getting out of the sun into another part of the warehouse. Thank you.
Your warehouse looks way nicer than our storage space.
Hey, well, sometimes it serves as a showroom. People like to come and hang out. So,
All right, great.
Yeah. Communication is key, as we talked about a few moments ago. I think this is where you can fold in an artistic community. It's so fun to have that problem set of like, okay, talking about B Corps is a big thing to talk about. Not a lot of people know what they are. They don't realize their significance. They don't realize their importance. Then it's on us. Well, let's create a narrative around this. Let's work with some artists to, whether it's like creating a film to describe something, if it's an email campaign, whatnot, it's an illustrator. That's when you can again put the creativity hat on and like run with it. I think it comes down to connecting with your audience and knowing what is the best route to get this message across, or, what can we do to make it known that these organizations exist to help other companies and organizations denote that they're selling products that are built to last. I do think though, like at the end of the day, and I'm from Michigan, I'm from north of Detroit and Lake Huron. Whenever I go back to Michigan, which is, I try to go every year, COVID's changed that. But whenever I go back, like, I just have my ear to the ground because my relatives in Michigan are Americans, they're the people across this country. New Yorkers sometimes are a little different, as everyone realizes, still, of course, Americans. But I say this because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be difficult to describe your business model to a 6-year-old or a 60-year-old. As when I worked in finance, there was this line: if it don't make sense, it won't make money. And if it's too hard to explain, then you're probably in the wrong industry. But at the end of the day, it's like, hey, antiques, vintage furniture, they show that the most sustainable product out there, the most circular product out there is furniture, beyond maybe housing, as we talked about. So it just requires some tech to get it around and out to more people. And then, of course, it's a big light bulb moment for a lot of people, and they see just how, yes, there are still new business models. And I even love talking to like this generation, older boomers, about what I'm doing, because so often they hear these tropes that like millennials are so lazy, millennials just like live off their parents and leech from their parents, and it's just like, and nothing new is coming out that's actually doing good. And so that is the generation that I'm actually most excited to talk about sometimes with ZZ, because I think it gives more optimism, hope, and like kind of resets the conversation in some ways.
That's great. Katie, Matt, do you want to add to that? That was wonderful. So we're getting toward the end here. I have some more questions, but I do want to make sure you guys have a chance to make your own statements, questions, whatever. I've enjoyed this conversation. I'd kind of like to dig into several of these topics for about an hour, but they tell me that's not possible today. So maybe I'll get you in my class. We'll see about that. Is there any other topic we haven't touched that you were hoping we would get on today?
I think I like when we talk about new retailers and in the landscape of legacy retailers, because I think really the only way for legacy retailers to make it with the younger audiences that are coming, that are realizing their spending power, is a term that we talk about at ZZ is by avoiding faceless fabrication, and that spans so many different forms of connection with your customer. It's both from like the packaging materials, it's obviously the product, it's how you communicate your brand, who works in your brand, your team, whether it's the team that runs the operations or the team that's making the product. There's just so much more storytelling that's going to come about, which is a beautiful thing. And like storytelling reveals truth. It's much harder to keep things behind the curtains when you are storytelling. And I think that's ultimately, I think like storytelling and then localization are what are going to get us through what we're all experiencing right now. Localization being knowing, if we think about faceless fabrication, localization is knowing what materials we're constructing with, whether it's the alpaca or whether it's the cotton or whether it's, the FSC certified wood, and then once there is more localization and less faceless fabrication, then we're just so much more aware of why something might cost a little more or what goes into it or why it might have a delay or take time to be made. I think it's just, as Kate described, like Amazon in some ways has made the bar really high for a lot of retailers, but in some ways it's kind of reminded us all that like, it's kind of BS how fast these products get to us and the costs that are there. It really put it in our face of should something this cheap be sold. The last thing I'll say about that is I was going through this book about the town of Newburgh in New York, and there was this photograph of this man who had a furniture department store, and oh my gosh, it was a photograph, and he was selling a dining set, and it was in 1929. It was a table. It was 6 chairs. In 1929, it was $48 for that dining set. You can go on to Amazon. You can go on to Wayfair right now, and like you can buy a table for that amount of money. That is just ludicrous in so many ways. But of course, we're here to provide solutions for that. And I'm excited about that. I obviously get choked up thinking about it. So I'll hand over the mic.
That's a great story. Matt, or anything you want to share as we wrap this up?
No, I think we cover a lot of really great topics.
All right. Katie?
I think just like a theme that I've kind of heard throughout this whole thing is just like each of our businesses in different ways, like just do a good job of connecting people and the importance of like growing that connection. And I'm going to get a little bit sappy here for a second like that. I like to think that like each one of our product doesn't like changes hands or like new people meet and stuff like that, that we're just all getting closer together. And I like to say with Campo, like we're just making the world a little bit smaller in a good way by educating people of where their products come from, by knowing every single person that's like gone into creating this new product. And I think that's something people can like latch onto. I think that's something that like just inherently people's like hearts latch onto. And I think that exists in each one of our businesses, which is probably why it's all growing, which is exciting.
Well, I do want to thank you. And we started this talking about, how can legacy retail improve it? And we heard a lot. Certainly the storytelling and the connections. And it's, as these companies grew and grew and grew and grew, that is a very difficult thing to maintain. To maintain the connections as you become giant. Having said that, it couldn't be more important than it is today. I think the way my students and our recent alumni view their purchasing power or what they choose to buy is vastly different because of good storytelling, because people have explained to them the consequences. People like Katie have told them who makes their product. And we can look at the effects. The UN climate change reports, there's so much coming at us very quickly right now. We're at a tipping point. So the storytelling, in my opinion, probably one of my most important jobs as an educator, is good storytelling to let our students leave better prepared to be better consumers. The retailing industry hires about 1 in 4 people in the United States. This is a massive power for social change. And I think good storytelling will lead to that. I really appreciate the stories you've told today. I hope I'll be able to connect with you in the future. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice meeting you guys.
Nice meeting everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good one.